Title: I sent a nude of me and my affair partner to my fiancé's family group chat. I was literally glowing. You know that feeling? Smug, high on cheap champagne and even cheaper decisions. Marcus was next to me in the tangled hotel sheets, all tousled hair and that stupid, perfect smirk, and I grabbed my phone. The plan was simple. Send the picture of us to my best friend, Jenna. The caption was already in my head. Guess who's finally booking that ticket to Barcelona? A little bomb to blow up my boring, stable life. My thumb was hovering over her name when the screen lit up. A notification. It was from the family group chat, my mom asking about Sunday dinner. I meant to swipe it away, I swear to God I did. But my finger must have slipped, tapped the notification instead of dismissing it. I hit send without even looking down. Then came the buzz. Not one buzz, a swarm. My phone vibrated on the nightstand like a trapped hornet. The lock screen was a wall of text I couldn't process at first. Mom, Lorelai, what in God's name is this? Mr. O'Connell, Lorelai, please tell me your account was hacked. My blood went ice cold. I finally looked at the chat I'd sent the photo to. It wasn't Jenna. It was Russo and O'Connell family dinner. I had just sent a picture of me, naked and grinning, in bed with a man who was very, very much not their son, to my mother, my father, and my fiancé's entire family. Panic isn't a strong enough word. It was like my soul was trying to claw its way out of my throat, a frantic, useless escape attempt. My vision went fuzzy at the edges, and the champagne buzz curdled into a nauseous wave. I fumbled with the phone, my fingers slick with a sudden, clammy sweat, stabbing at the screen. I was trying to find the unsend button, that magical little rewind feature, but my brain couldn't even form the right commands. It was too late anyway. The little blue checkmarks were already there, a neat row of soldiers standing guard under my catastrophic mistake. Read by everyone. God, that might be the most terrifying phrase in the English language. The group chat was a nuclear meltdown in real time. My mom's messages turned into a string of missed FaceTime calls, her profile picture popping up again and again, a face I couldn't bear to look at. Andre's sister, Chloe, just sent a cascade of question marks, each one feeling like a tiny, sharp stab. Then his dad sent one more message, colder and more final than the first. Andre is with me. Do not contact him. But the silence from Andre himself was the loudest sound in the universe. His name in the group chat was just there. A silent, accusing tombstone. I clicked on his private chat. Nothing. Not a single word. I called him, my thumb shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. Straight to voicemail. I called again, and again. The third time it didn't even ring, just that soulless beep of a direct-to-voicemail transfer. His voice, pre-recorded and cheerful. Hey, you've reached Andre, leave a message. Sounded like a ghost from a life I just gleefully murdered. I shoved the phone in Marcus's face, a silent, desperate plea for what? Help. Absolution. The smug satisfaction on his face had curdled into pure, unadulterated horror. He didn't just get scared, he looked at me like I was radioactive. Oh, shit, he breathed, scrambling out of the bed as if the sheets were on fire. He was pulling on his designer jeans, hopping on one foot, avoiding my eyes like they were lasers. Look, Lori, I gotta go. My sister, she needs me. Something came up. He was a terrible liar, and he didn't even care. He just needed to be gone. He grabbed his wallet and keys, and as he reached the door, he paused for a second, not to comfort me, but to deliver the final blow. You need to handle this, Lori. This is your mess. The door clicked shut, and the sound echoed in the sudden, crushing silence of the room. I was alone in that sterile hotel, the only sound the relentless, accusing buzz of my phone, which I'd thrown onto the floor. It was still lighting up, a little beacon of my own personal hell. I know what you're thinking. You're sitting there, reading this, and you've already got me pegged. What kind of monster cheats on a good guy and then, just to add a little extra spice, sends the evidence to his entire family? And you're right. I get it. I am a monster. But to understand the full, spectacular, Chernobyl-level meltdown of my life, you have to understand Andre. And you have to understand the suffocating comfort he represented. Andre is good. Not just good, like he holds doors open or remembers my coffee order. He's fundamentally, structurally good down to his bones. He's a geologist. His whole life is about stability, pressure, and time. He's the human equivalent of a bedrock formation. Solid, dependable, and for 5 years, he has been my unwavering ground. He loved me in this quiet, methodical way that felt less like a passion and more like a law of physics. It was a given. Lorelai is the person Andre loves. Full stop. There was never a question, never a doubt, and that certainty, which should have felt like a gift, started to feel like a life sentence. Our life together was a perfectly plotted graph. We had our shows we watched on Tuesdays, our date night on Fridays at the same Italian place where I always ordered the gnocchi, and he always got the lasagna. We did our grocery shopping on Saturday mornings, armed with a list he'd prepared. He was building a life for us, a safe, comfortable, predictable life. And for the first few years, it was everything I thought I wanted. It was security. It was home. But security, I learned, has a dark side. It's boring. It's a slow-acting poison that numbs you from the inside out until you forget what it feels like to have a racing pulse. He never fought with me. Ever. I could get angry. I could cry. I could throw a full-blown, unhinged tantrum about something as stupid as him buying the wrong brand of almond milk, and he wouldn't yell back. He would just get this calm, patient look on his face. His shoulders would tense up just a little, the only sign of his frustration, and he'd wait for the storm to pass. Then he'd say something like, "Okay, I hear you. I'll add the right brand to the list for next week." He never fought with me. He just managed my emotions. He absorbed all my chaos and gave back nothing but calm, rational silence. He was a communication-avoidant master. And that silence, that lack of fire, started to feel like a dismissal. It felt like I wasn't worth fighting for, or even fighting with. I was just a problem to be solved. Meanwhile, my friends were living in Technicolor. Jenna was dating this volatile artist who would paint murals for her one day and break up with her the next. Their life was a canvas of screaming matches and passionate makeup sex. My other friend, Chloe, was with a finance bro who flew her to Miami for the weekend on a whim. Their Instagram was a highlight reel of rooftop bars and spontaneous adventures. They had stories. They had drama. What was my story? Andre and I are thinking of refinancing the mortgage to get a better interest rate. I felt like I was 28 going on 55. This pressure, this feeling of being left behind in the most boring, sensible life imaginable, it was eating me alive. I'd be at brunch with them, listening to their wild tales, and I'd just nod along, feeling like a fraud. I was trapped in this beautiful, safe, golden cage he'd built for us, and I was starting to claw at the bars. I needed to feel something. Anything, other than stable. Then Marcus walked in. It was 3 months ago, at some pretentious art gallery opening Jenna dragged me to. The room was full of people like Andre, safe, sensible people in muted colors talking about their portfolios. And then there was Marcus. He was a freelance photographer, and he moved through the room like he owned the place, a whirlwind of charisma in a worn leather jacket. He didn't talk about interest rates. He talked about capturing the soul of a city in a single shot, about the way light fell on abandoned buildings. He was a walking, talking cliché of the artistic soul. And God help me, I fell for it hook, line, and sinker. He zeroed in on me while I was pretending to be fascinated by a sculpture that looked like a pile of scrap metal. He didn't ask what I did for a living or where I went to school. He leaned in, his voice a low rumble over the gallery chatter, and asked, "So, what's one thing you've always wanted to do but have been too scared to try?" The question was so direct, so cheesy, it should have made me laugh. Instead, it felt like a punch to the gut, because I didn't have an answer. My entire life was built on not being scared, on making the smart, safe choice. With Marcus, everything was an adventure. Our first date was a spontaneous trip to a dive bar an hour out of town because he'd heard they had the best jukebox. We spent hours drinking cheap beer, and he told me stories about backpacking through Vietnam, about the faces he'd photographed, the lives he'd glimpsed. He looked at me with an intensity that Andre hadn't shown in years. It wasn't the comfortable, familiar gaze of my fiancé. It was the hungry, appreciative stare of a man who saw me not as a partner in a long-term plan, but as something exciting and new to be discovered. He made me feel like an undiscovered country. The affair started, and I dove in head first. I told myself all the classic, pathetic lies. It was just a fling. It didn't mean anything. I was just letting off steam, and I'd end it before it got serious. I convinced myself that I was in control, that this was a separate, secret part of my life that would never touch the stable world I had with Andre. I'd come home from a clandestine meeting with Marcus, heart pounding with adrenaline and guilt, and Andre would be there, making dinner, asking about my late work meeting. The guilt would last for about 5 seconds before the thrill of getting away with it took over. I wasn't in control. I was addicted. I was addicted to the risk, to the secret text messages that made my phone feel like a bomb, to the feeling of having a life that was entirely my own, a life that Andre knew nothing about. I was living a double life, and the sheer, stupid, selfish thrill of it drowned out everything else. Which brings us back to that hotel room. Just before the world exploded, Marcus was painting this picture for me, this fantasy life. He was whispering about Barcelona, about a little apartment he knew of in the Gothic quarter with a balcony overlooking the streets. "We could just go, Laurie," he'd said, his breath warm against my ear, tracing patterns on my back. "Just pack a bag and disappear. Leave all this quiet desperation behind." Quiet desperation. That's what he called my life with Andre. And in that moment, tangled in the sheets with him, drunk on cheap champagne and the intoxicating fantasy of it all, I believed him. I wasn't a cheater having a sordid affair. No, I was a romantic heroine on the verge of a grand escape. I was breaking free from a life that was slowly suffocating me. It was so easy to see myself that way, to cast Andre as the gentle, unwitting jailer and Marcus as my passionate liberator. That's when we took the picture. It was his idea, of course. "Let's commemorate the decision," he'd said, grabbing my phone from the nightstand. He held it up, his arm around my bare shoulders, and we both leaned into the frame. We were laughing, flushed, a mess of limbs and stupid, triumphant smiles. It was a picture of two people who thought they'd gotten away with everything, who believed they were smarter and bolder than everyone else. He handed the phone back to me, the image glowing on the screen. "Send that to Jenna. Tell her you're finally doing it. She'll lose her mind." I was so high on the moment. My fingers were buzzing as I typed out the caption. "Guess who's finally booking that ticket to Barcelona?" My thumb was hovering right over Jenna's name in my contacts. And right then, a notification banner slid down from the top of the screen. It was the family group chat. My mom, of all people, sending a picture of a roast chicken with the caption, "Dinner at 7 on Sunday. Your dad wants to know." I don't know how it happened. I've replayed that exact second in my mind 1,000 times, and it's still a blur. Maybe my thumb slipped as I tried to swipe the notification away. Maybe in some dark, Freudian corner of my subconscious, I wanted to get caught, to set off a bomb so I wouldn't have to be the one to light the match. All I know is that my finger tapped on that banner, opening the group chat. And without even registering the change in the recipient field, my brain on autopilot, I pasted the caption and hit the little blue arrow. Send. For a split second, there was just blissful, idiotic ignorance. I put the phone down, smiling at Marcus, ready to start my new, exciting life. Then came the buzz, and the buzz, and the buzz, the beginning of the end. The drive home was a blur of streetlights and a rising tide of nausea. I kept replaying the image of Marcus's face as he fled, the sheer panic in his eyes. The romantic hero had turned into a coward in record time. By the time I pulled into our apartment complex, a new, insane hope had taken root in my chest. Maybe Andre would yell. Maybe he'd scream at me, throw things, demand an explanation. A fight. I wanted a fight. A fight would mean he still cared enough to be angry. A fight I could handle. A fight could be fixed. But the apartment was silent. Deathly silent. The first thing I noticed was the empty space on the shoe rack where his scuffed work boots always were. Then I walked into the living room. The shelves were half empty. His geology textbooks, the collection of minerals he'd had since he was a kid, the framed photo of us at the Grand Canyon from our first vacation, all gone. I walked through the apartment like a ghost. In the bathroom, his toothbrush was gone, his side of the medicine cabinet wiped clean. In the bedroom, his drawers were empty, the closet a cavernous space where his clothes used to hang. He hadn't just packed a bag. He had systematically, methodically, and silently erased himself from our shared life. It was like a professional cleaning crew had come through and removed every trace of a man named Andre O'Connell. It was brutally efficient. It was so Andre. On the polished wood of the dining room table, where we'd eaten hundreds of silent, sensible dinners, sat his apartment key. Just the key. No note, no angry, tear-stained letter. Nothing. Just a small piece of metal, a final, silent severing of our 5 years together. I finally collapsed, my phone clutched in my hand, and called Jenna. I was sobbing so hard I could barely form words, a string of incoherent, gasping apologies and questions. What do I do? Jenna, what do I do? There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When she finally spoke, her voice wasn't warm or comforting. It was cold, flat, and full of a disappointment that cut deeper than any anger could. Lorelai, what do you mean? What do you do? There's nothing to do, she said, her words clipped and precise. You didn't just make a mistake. You took a hand grenade, pulled the pin, and tossed it into the middle of his family dinner. You humiliated him in front of his parents. His parents, Laurie, just leave him alone. For God's sake, just let him have that. It's been 3 weeks, or maybe 4. The days bleed into each other in a gray, sleepless haze. Marcus, predictably, is a ghost. He blocked my number after a single, pathetic text exchange where he told me he wasn't looking for this kind of drama. The great adventurer, scared off by the first sign of an actual emotional explosion. My family is speaking to me, but only in short, clipped sentences filled with the weight of their shame. My mother's voice on the phone is the worst. It's this brittle, high-pitched thing I've never heard before. The family dinners I so desperately wanted to escape are now a thing of the past. I'm no longer invited. I am completely, utterly alone in the silent, half-empty apartment that echoes with a life I torched with my own 2 hands. And so I haunt the internet. It's the only thing I do. Andre blocked me on everything, of course. His parents, his sister, even his cousins. I'm a digital leper. But you can always find a way, can't you? I made a fake Instagram account, a blank profile with 0 followers. A ghost account for a ghost of a person. From there, I can see the public profiles. I can see his sister, Chloe's page. That's where I saw it, last night. She posted a photo from a family barbecue at the beach. It's a bright, sunny picture, full of smiling faces. His dad is at the grill, his mom is laughing with Chloe. And there, in the corner of the frame, is Andre. He's thinner. He's not smiling, not really. He's just looking out at the ocean, a beer bottle held loosely in his hand. But his family is there, surrounding him. His sister has her hand on his shoulder. They've formed a protective circle around him, a circle I will never, ever be allowed back into. I spend my nights staring at that picture. I zoom in on his face, trying to read his expression. Is he sad? Is he angry? Or is he just empty? I zoom in on their faces, imagining what they're saying. I can almost hear them, their voices carrying on the sea breeze, talking about how much better off he is now, how he dodged a bullet. A bullet named Lorelai. This is my life now. I'm a social media stalker, a digital ghost haunting the edges of a life I set on fire. I refresh the page again and again, hoping for a new picture, a new crumb of information, a new knife to twist in my own gut. I got what I wanted. I blew up my boring, stable life. And now I'm sitting in the rubble, all alone, with nothing but the afterglow of the explosion to keep me warm. This is my hell. The one I built, pixel by pixel.